Cleveland, you're up.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, and thank you especially for putting this event together. This is incredibly inspiring to be here. I'm grateful for everyone who put this together and honored to be here. A little bit about my background. I ran for governor in Iowa in 2002 as a libertarian. I've been active in the movement to get rid of the income tax for about 20 years. I wrote a book called Restoring the Heart of America, A Return to Bottom-Up Government in 2001, which Ed Griffin and Ron Paul both wrote testimonials for. Appreciated their support. More recently, I was involved in the Ron Paul campaign. I'd like to report that our county, Jefferson County, Iowa, was one of the only counties, I believe, in the entire country to have a victory for Ron Paul, 37% of the vote. That work, by the way, that result was not the result of a few weeks of organization. We started a constitutional study group in our county 12 years ago. We had Ed Griffin come and speak in our community 10 years ago, and we had 100 people there in a town of 10,000 people to hear Ed Griffin. So it's years and years of work and educating people about the principles of our founders. That's what our group does. More recently, I wrote a book, which you all have in front of you, called Common Sense Revisited. We've heard a lot about Real ID and some of these things. It's a little bit kind of depressing, a little bit on this stuff that we need to hear, but I just want to tell you a story. In January of 1776, the founders were meeting, and Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin wanted to see a Declaration of Independence signed. But they knew at that point in January that the votes weren't there. But they took a poll, and that poll was a pretty grim experience for them because it was about 75% for getting back with England. This is while George Washington was in Boston fighting the British. The vast majority of the delegates wanted to get back with England, make up with England. So they postponed the vote, and they kept working on people. In the meantime, in January of 1776, right about the same time, the first 50,000 copies of Common Sense were released by Thomas Paine. They were sold out in less than 2 days. Another 50,000 were printed up. They were sold out within a couple of days. Within a few months, it had changed. Common Sense had changed the whole country. It actually created a paradigm shift in our country. George Washington wrote in March, "By private letters which I have lately received from Virginia, I find common sense is working a powerful change there in the minds of many men." It shifted the consciousness of the colonies. By the way, 500,000 copies were sold in a country of less than 3 million people. Most historians believe that almost everybody read Common Sense. So I knew this, I read this about 6, 7 years ago, and I thought, if somebody's got to write something that'll do what Common Sense did. And then, the whole thing, if not you, who, and all that, I was thinking, I got to do this, but I was busy with my campaign, and I never got around to it. And then one day I turned on the TV, and I saw one of Ron Paul's early Republican debates. And I saw him up there, and I saw him being maligned by the master of ceremonies, being maligned by the other candidates, but speaking truth to power. And I thought, at 72 years old, if Ron Paul can do that, I can write Common Sense. So I sat down and I started writing. And I'm very excited about it. We've sold over 35,000 copies now, and we're about ready for our next printing. But it's been amazing. Of course, Ron Paul endorsed it, and he put it on his Campaign for Liberty site. Gary Franchi made it his last September's issue, and that really kicked things off. But basically what we do, folks, is the same thing Thomas Paine did. Thomas Paine showed people a difference between government sovereignty and individual sovereignty in a common sense way that everyone could understand. And it resonated with the hearts of the people. And what we've done is we talk about indigenous power versus surrogate power. Indigenous power is the power the individual receives from his creator, a special relationship with his creator. Individual sovereignty, indigenous power, same thing. And then surrogate power is the power we give to entities that we create. We create institutions, we create corporations or limited partnerships or LLCs or governments. Those are surrogates. They have no indigenous power. They have no power of their own. The only entity that has indigenous power are you and me and all the other individuals on the planet. We have that indigenous power because of the special relationship with our Creator. And that is what Thomas Paine tapped into. That's what we're hoping to tap into with Common Sense Revisited, and we are. And once people realize that they have the indigenous power, then we can, all this stuff that we're concerned about here can be wiped away because we can get the people to realize what's going on. And I see my time is up. I just want to end with a quote. And this quote, in terms of the Continental Congress, I'm very excited about it the way I fully endorse the efforts that Bob has made and the Continental Congress. I think it's a great opportunity for us to return to the founding principles. But I have this one quote that I have to read to you, because in my mind, this should be, for me, this is going to be the mission statement for the Continental Congress, if I'm going to be involved with it. And I want to read you this quote, because it's so inspiring to me, and I think it encapsulates what we want to do. This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson to the Georgetown Republicans in 1809. This is a year after he finished his second term as president. The principles on which we engaged, of which the charter of our independence is the record, were sanctioned by the laws of our being, and we but obeyed them in pursuing undeviatingly the course they called for. Thank you very much.